Hi, folks. Good morning. My name is Tyler Benster, and I'm with you here live from the blockchain. We're doing another AMA here, Kadena Eco Project Deep Dive. Very excited to have DNA back with us, and we're going to have a lot of fun here today. We also have a special guest as well, and we'll get right to the introductions. But briefly, for those of you that have been sleeping under a rock, Kadena is an innovative layer one blockchain that scales proof of work. And DNA is a marquee project that's been an early builder, early adopter, doing all sorts of amazing things within the database of native assets, bridging the physical and the virtual worlds through their use of NFTs and Marmalade and innovative ideas for how we can track objects in the real world and sort of bridge some of these divides. So we're going to have a really, really interesting discussion today. I'm looking forward to it quite a lot. That's a cue that I need to take a sip of coffee right there. And without further ado, let me go ahead and bring up everyone onto the stage for some introductions. Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you, Tyler?
Great to have you back.
Cheers.
Hey Tyler, good to be back.
So Abraham and Adam, we've had you before, and Lucas, you I believe are new. So maybe we can start, Lucas, with you, and we'll go around the circle from there.
Hi Tyler, what's up?
Not too much. We would love to hear just a little bit, Lucas, about your background, how you got here today, and what you're excited to talk about on this AMA.
Yeah, well, I am excited to talk about it because it's we're at an exciting stage. How I came to be here, well, difficult to explain. We sort of dived into this project, and it became more and more interesting and more complex. I myself have nothing to do with tech. It's old fashioned traditional jewelry that I'm interested in, and that I work for and with. And that's why it's kind of interesting to combine old-fashioned artisanal work with kind of like more techie things. So I'm a jeweler. I work for a jewelry company. I'm the manager of a jewelry company, and we've been exploring how we can do various things with DNA on the Kadena blockchain, which we're trying out now.
That's amazing, and we're going to get into a lot more of that as this AMA goes on. But let me jump back to some crowd favorites. Abraham and Adam, would you mind introducing yourselves again for anyone that may have missed the previous AMA?
Yeah, of course.
Adam,
Well,
please
Abraham
go
is the
first.
real star of DNA, so Abraham should go first.
So my name is Abraham Milano. I'm a software developer. I'm the CTO of the DNA. Been working already for a year on the Kadena blockchain, and every single day that passes, I love it a little bit more.
He really does. I'm Adam Joanna. I'm the CEO of DNA. My background is in commodities, so we always joke around that with Abraham we're merging blockchain and supply chain, working on our project, which we can get into a bit more detail, but more on the utility side of the blockchain to give objects an identity and create more traceability, more transparency around the provenance and ownership around an object.
Right on. So, as you may have seen already, we have a bunch of community that's already in the house. Some folks that were there early, 5 minutes before we started, while I was still trying to get my coffee ready. We got all sorts of people that are excited to be here. So this is just a reminder for anyone that's out in the audience that we try and make these as interactive as possible. So please do ask questions and see how many we can get to during this AMA. So we'd love to make this as interactive as possible. Also, I think we have someone who has a bit of background noise, so maybe we try and keep mute on, and then feel free to toggle it off when you're about to speak. Yeah, that's perfect. But yeah, absolutely. So Cloud, one Kadena branded jewelry and gold coins. Fantastic, fantastic. Let's hop in off of that one. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how the three of you came to be working together.
I can start if you want, Lucas. So this actually happened a while back. We met with Schullin, and actually one of Lucas's partners, Herbert Schullin, actually came up and asked us about a problem that he was facing around IP. So essentially, he's a very, very talented designer, was creating these really cool jewelry designs, and found that certain other jewelers were copying them. It's extremely painful to protect that IP. It's costly. It takes time, and you're not guaranteed to have the protection that you require. So his idea was, well, why don't I just put my designs on the blockchain, and that way I have a reference and a point of time immutably that proves that these designs were created. So that's where the discussion started. And then as we went down the rabbit hole, there were certain things that we realized that, one, the client base that they were covering was getting younger and younger, and you need new ways to engage with them. And also certain just aspects of the day-to-day that sometimes become a bit complicated, like, the jewelry generally comes with a certificate of authenticity, comes with a gem report, and over time you kind of lose track of these documents. So, we're thinking, well, the blockchain is just a great repository for that. So why not use it in a new way to create a certificate of authenticity? So that's how it developed. And then this opportunity came along where, Schullin do these amazing one-off pieces. And there was this gemstone that they sourced. And I think there's a funny story about that too that maybe Lucas could say. But they wanted to make a one-off piece and put it to auction. So that piece is going for sale this Saturday at Sotheby's. It's actually going to be, from what we understand, the first piece of jewelry to go to auction. It's going to be backed by a digital certificate of authenticity or token. So we're quite proud of that, and we're very grateful for Lucas's support and his trust in us. And he's currently at the airport, actually flying out to Geneva. So that's why there's some background noise. So we're also grateful for him taking the time to join us today and to chat about why he decided to go with us and partner with us on this. Lucas, anything to add on that?
Yeah, that was pretty concise explanation, and it's absolutely correct. It started off with kind of dry application. We produce a lot of jewelry, and we should have, or we would have had to go through the motions of patenting every single piece in order to protect us from privacy infringements and companies that want to sue us. So you can't do that. That's too much work, and it's also too costly. And then Adam comes along, and he says, well, I might have the right thing at the right time for you. And he kind of did, which was funny. As I alluded to before, it has more applications than that. But in the beginning, it was sort of just there to solve a very, very easy, very, very dry problem, namely proving that something was there in a certain form and shape when it was created. And that's how it came to be.
Fantastic. I see a question from the audience that's starting to get a little more technical. So there's a few questions here, but let's start with sort of the broader question of sort of, could we talk through technically what is the current implementation look like? And maybe we can go from there and expand as we go on.
Yeah, I can try, Abe, but can I see the question again? Can you?
Oh yeah. I think the question has a few parts. It's a little complicated, but I think the spirit of the question is, what is the technology exactly doing? What's sort of the problem that's exactly solving? And how does that tie in with authenticity?
So I mean, I can kick this one off. Maybe not from such a technical point of view, but what it solves, I can explain that rather easily. Um, it solves the issue of proving something was in a specific state in a specific time. So if you look at jewelry, I mean, you mentioned Gucci. Okay, let's say Gucci jewelry. Um, you can simply, with a token, prove that this piece was created by Gucci. You can upload the design and prove that you've paid a certain amount of money for it, which will maybe not be so interesting tomorrow in a couple of days' time, but in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time, it'll be interesting because you might have lost the invoice, you might have lost the certificate of authenticity from other labs. And even if you haven't lost that, and if you show it to someone else, nobody's going to be there to prove that you haven't tampered with the certificate, because on Photoshop I can do all sorts of stuff, and even with a physical certificate, I can simply cut it up and change the numbers and make 60,000 out of 6,000. And if you have like an independent third-party arbiter in between that to show that, listen, Gucci issued this token, then that's the problem it solves.
Yeah, to add to that, look, as a basic form, I think that the Marmalade contract that Kadena have designed is already a really good protector of a good, because first of all, you can put information, you can put stuff onto the blockchain that would be potentially just on the paper, on a cloud-based document. That is important for jewelry. So, for instance, certain characteristics about the gemstone or the designs, as Lucas mentioned. So that's the first kind of level. Then you have also the smart contracts that are written on Pact that are embedded in the token, which also gives you as the minter a certain power over the token and how it behaves in the real world once it's been passed on to your end user. Then beyond that, there are certain technologies that we can integrate in the back. It's very sector specific. It really depends on the different industries and what technologies they use and the data output that comes out from that. Which we can't really divulge too much because it would compromise some of these systems, but we can embed all that stuff in the back end, which then gives you a more one-for-one protection against it. But as a basis, we think that Marmalade gives you already a lot of protection. Oftentimes when you buy these jewelries or these jewelry pieces in the real world, all you get is a piece of paper, right? So the token in itself is already just an improvement on that, and then obviously we can add more technology behind it, and that's very sector specific.
Awesome.
I would say, yeah, definitely. I don't really have that much to add. I think Lucas and Adam have actually made it very, very clear. But just to double down on that and talk a little bit also about why Kadena, for instance. Kadena has so many features already in that make all of this very easy to us. Row level security, just the namespaces it might seem like a simple thing, but it's quite powerful. So we are leveraging a lot of like different systems, different environments, and different techs to ensure that a token is definitely secure and authentic regarding the brand that issued the token and the piece that is attached to the token.
Terrific. So we've done a little bit more of a dive now on some of the technology backing this implementation. Lucas, I would love to hear from you just a little bit more about Schullin Weins, and a little bit more, if you could, just very briefly on the jewelry side of things, and finally, what got you interested in NFTs and crypto to begin with.
Well, that's difficult to say. As I said, I'm not a tech guy. What got me interested in the beginning is simply, the enthusiasm around an NFT and how it can be linked to our product. Because you see, with jewelry, you always have the issue of authenticity, right? Is this diamond a diamond? Is this gemstone a gemstone? How does the end customer know? The end customer doesn't know. And so this kind of neatly fits into our industry, and it gives it an extra push in terms of authenticity, as I was saying, and it's also relevant to the question that one of your viewers asked. How can you prove it? Well, in the case of jewelry, it's very simple. Every stone and every piece is unique in its physical world, and that's why you can tell very easily whether one piece is just by measuring how it reflects light with laser beams. Every stone is unique. There are no two stones, two diamonds, or two colored gemstones that are the same. And if you back that up with a blockchain issued token, with an NFT, then that kind of like makes the product just a little bit more, it just makes it more sexy. It adds to the sex appeal for the buyer now, but also for the buyer for 10 to 20 years. Because remember, it's like watches. You don't have an expiry date on that. It's not a pair of shoes that will be worn down in 2 years' time. We deal with jewelry that's 1,000 years old. It just does not go bad. It has no expiry date, and that's why you need to take care of of how this is going to develop in the future. And that's why I think it's interesting.
I love that. So diamonds are forever, as is your NFT on Kadena.
Clearly, Betsy wasn't wrong.
Correct.
Some appreciation from the audience here for that answer. Thank you for that, Lucas. So we can continue to go with questions from audience as people ask them. In the meantime, actually, there was one other one that was pretty interesting. I wanted to bring up from Mima Rika. What are the struggles you encountered in putting up this project, and how did you overcome those hurdles?
That was actually a good question. I saw it and was hoping you would ask it. I think the hardest thing about this is that it's so new. And, when you think about blockchain, people firstly think about cryptocurrencies. Then once you start talking about NFTs, everybody's thinking about the art NFTs that were, very hot last year. But for us, since the beginning, what we saw as the power of the blockchain is just it's an amazing and untamperable database, right? So that's why we're called the database of native assets. So the hardest part has been firstly to communicate in a way that we could explain the notions that we're trying to create here, because there's really nothing like it at the moment. I mean, there are things like it in the real world, but just not on the blockchain. And as soon as you mention blockchain or NFT, there's certain connotations that people have, certain concepts that they think, and it's hard to remove them from that. So, we've really worked hard on our messaging, and anyone who's been following us will see that on our website, that we're trying to create just messaging that's more attainable, right? And it was very, very important that we kind of build these concepts and also, in our brand's a database of native assets. So, at the base, it's a database. Native kind of gives you a sense of provenance, and then an asset is ownership, and this is what we thought was important. That these utility tokens could give an identity to a product, and that this creates so many different potential new possibilities for that product. One is this traceability and authenticity. The second is transferability when you pass it on. There's this old concept that's kind of died out of the bearer share, where back in the day, you own an asset, you essentially had a piece of paper, and having physical title of this piece of paper was your ownership. So this is kind of your digital bearer share. But it also opens up the possibility of being able to direct market to one of your owners, whether you sold to them direct through a third party or in a secondary market. It allows you to keep visibility over your secondary market so you can reward these owners. It also allows you in a world where ESG is becoming more and more prevalent, where we're trying to find better ways to recycle. If you create a product and it has an end of life and you want to be able to incentivize it back to your production so that you can recycle it, this is what we need, because so far, once a product is produced and sold, you as a brand might not have the ability to track it anymore. You might have your buyer and your records and your CRM, and you might have that contact, but you've lost complete contact with the item itself. And we think that that's the next evolution in how things will transact and how consumer behaviors will change, because we're seeing people want to buy better products that have longer shelf lives. They're more active in the secondary market, which has blown up in the last few years, and they're more also conscious about the environment. That's also another reason we picked Kadena, because of the low environmental impact. When minting and transferring the tokens, low gas fees, which was really important, because that was another hurdle. When you talk blockchain, people tend to think, okay, well, right now we're talking about climate change and all that. I don't really want to adopt a technology that is detrimental to the environment. So, these were all aspects that we had to contend with, and I think that was the hardest part, right? When you're trying to do something completely new. I mean, I remember when I first met Abraham, he actually in 2017 was building an NFT, and I thought he was completely bonkers. I thought he was completely mad. I didn't understand why anyone would want to do this. Even though I was very intrigued by the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, I just didn't understand why you would want to own, digital art like that. And he was so prescient, and it just shows that, sometimes you're just ignorant, and you need someone to show you the light. And it's always hard when you're the first mad fool that runs, and it takes a while for people to start following and getting it, and the adoption curve is quite parabolic.
Right on. Wow, we got a couple of really interesting questions coming up. So one from Noah Crypto about LCX and their diamond NFTs. So I believe he's referring to these kind of asset-backed investments, whereas I understand it, a firm basically offers tokenized diamond ownership, such that the NFT is apparently redeemable for diamonds, but if you buy the NFT, you don't necessarily possess the NFT. I said that backwards. If you buy the NFT, you do possess the NFT. You may not possess the diamond. So I was wondering if you folks could kind of compare and contrast the approach here and what we're talking about with this initial sale versus that kind of tokenized based redeemable diamond model.
You wanna give that a try, Adam?
Sure. I think that the difference is, these are more kind of bearer shares in the very, very traditional sense. That's, like it's a custodian token, whilst like we're doing a utility token, right? So the custodian token is just, it's exactly a bearer share in the sense that, once you burn that token, you can take delivery of the product. So it's a really interesting concept, I think, because it's it's a way, like if you buy wine, you can buy wine en primeur, which means that you basically buy it before it's there, and then once you take delivery of it, you pay the taxes and everything on it. There's similar concepts in other markets, and I know there's another company that's doing this with very high-end alcohol. It can be very interesting in the sense that it's a way to potentially do fractional ownership of something, but that's not the concept we're going for. The concept that we really believe in is utility tokens, right? So it's digitizing and archiving physical goods. so that you can track them through their lifespan, and make sure that if you're a very coveted brand and you create something in a limited edition and one of your buyers misses it out, that they have the ability to track it down and buy it from someone else, and that they can do that in a safe environment, knowing that as long as it comes with the token, they have some assurance that it's authentic. Again, closing the recycling loops, or also facilitating servicing, right? So if you have a watch, for instance, and it needs to be serviced, or even a gem, after a certain amount of time, the certification will expire and it needs to be recertified, just to facilitate that, right? And to keep a record of that. And we're also working on going deeper into the supply chain, so that you have the entire history of that product, so that by the time it comes to you know exactly where it came from. And then once you have it, and then beyond, everything that's happened to it, right? But that's kind of the next phase.
Super cool.
I don't know if that answered it.
I think so. The one clarification I wanted to add was, so with this particular auction, will the winner or the buyer, will they receive the physical good as well, or just the NFT? Both, exactly. So I think that's a key difference, is that in this case, there's the authenticity aspect, there's the utility of the NFT sort of adding to the purchase of what ultimately is also a physical good. So it's not something that just represents a physical good that sits in a warehouse somewhere. You're also getting jewelry that you can use and showcase and display and have all the benefits of actually owning the thing, as opposed to it being purely an investment vehicle. Because on some level, if you're buying a NFT that represents a diamond and you don't have the diamond, you're losing out on one of the presumably great joys of owning a gemstone, which is looking at the damn thing.
No, correct. And that's, for us, it's very important that, we are a link between the two. So, conceptually, the way we think about it is that, when you buy a product like jewelry or high-end watch, usually comes with a certificate of authenticity, and then you might get like a bunch of documents around for jewelry, for instance, the certification of the gemstones, anything else, right? So what we've done is we've made that all digital, and we also embed protection in the background, so that you can kind of link it one for one. But that's really just a certificate of authenticity, right? Like that's how we're kind of we see this token, or native asset, as we call it, for Schullin. It's just that you buy this, and then you have this digital record that will be forever on the blockchain, that will be forever linked to this physical item, right?
Yeah, if I can barge.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, if I can barge in here. Tyler, you asked the most fundamental question that people misunderstand, and you just asked the key question. Even people of my generation or even younger, customers and friends of my wife the other day, she asked me, "What are you selling? Are you selling the NFT, or are you selling a piece of jewelry?" And that just goes to show, how nascent this business industry or application, whatever you want to call it, is. People still don't understand what exactly it is, and even the guys at Sotheby's, as much as I appreciate them, they asked me, what exactly are you selling? Are you selling the piece of jewelry? And I'm like, yes, we are selling the piece of jewelry. It's just an underlying, additional layer of security for the buyer that shows that at the moment of sale, this piece of jewelry was there in its shape and form. And if you ever want to transfer it, we can take the measurements, hold it up against the certificate. You can understand it, know for sure the certificate has not been tampered with. And that is so important in our industry. Yeah, I'm talking about luxury industry in general. So important that you have a product, that you have a certificate that is not tampered with. And up until now, it simply wasn't possible. You can always tamper with something. You can change the physical certificate. You can do it on Photoshop. You can cut it out and change the numbers. And for us, and that's why I think DNA is called DNA, it's a native asset, which means that there is an underlying physical good behind it. And the NFT in itself, is just the NFT. We're talking about the combination of the two.
And actually, two things. First of all, Tyler, I'll bet you a KDA, which in 5 years everybody will not confuse these concepts, and in 5 years a KDA will probably worth a lot. So I'll do that bet with you if you want to take it. That in 5 years these conversations won't happen because everybody will know what this is. And then Lucas, maybe I think it's worth sharing the story about when you originally bought the gemstone and the issue you had with the certificates, right? And how this potentially solves it, right?
Well, I mean, I don't want to bore you guys, so just to fly over that. Even us as professional jewelers, we have the issue of knowing whether something is real or not. And we bought this specific stone in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, with a dealer we haven't known before, a relatively small time dealer, and it was quite a big deal. So we weren't sure whether this is actually his stone or whether it's correct. And we end up doing the deal and buying it. Much to his and our surprise, and he sends us the certificate, which was a very reputable institute, GRS, based in Switzerland and in Thailand. And then I did something I never do. I actually scanned the QR code on the certificate, because usually I'm just sure that it's that stone, and I trust my suppliers. I scanned the QR code, and I get to a website. I get to the GRS website, and it was a completely different stone. It was a completely different stone. It was instead of a cushion, it was an oval. And I called I remember in the middle of the night, I called the accountant, and I'm like, Stephen, stop the transaction. It's fraud, and this guy, he's not for real, and he's not. It's not a genuine transaction. It's probably a terrorist or something. So he stopped the transaction, and next day he calls me up and says, what's up? What happened? And I'm like, the stone is not what you're saying it is. And then he's like, yes, it is. It's called the Institute. So I called the Institute. I called GRS, and I'm like, guys, what's up? And they said, we apologize. We made a mistake. The certificate is correct, but we uploaded a wrong picture. And I'm like, well, that's not that doesn't happen very often, does it? No, we're very sorry. And then he simply uploaded a new picture, the real picture. And then I said, listen, guys, that's it. You're just gonna, change the picture, and I have no additional, security. And he's like, no, I changed the picture, and that's that. And that left me wanting as a professional buyer. I would have wanted him to say, listen, I'll send you a new certificate with a new reference number, and on top of that, I'll give you a new entry onto the blockchain, with that picture and that reference number and those dimensions. Then I would have been happy. But it happened.
Yeah, so there's that element of, one, that experience, not only was it damaging to your own experience with trusting a particular seller, but also with the certification agency itself, seeing that, okay, in this case, they use their power to unilaterally change the certificate for good, but would an insider be able to, for example, exploit that system for their own gain by taking some certificate that's valid that describes a less valuable object and modifying it to describe a more valuable one? So there's kind of this question of how the certification business can be gamed, and whether it can be abused. And I think this is where trustless and decentralization of blockchain comes in as a powerful tool, because you have this ledger that's following, and you can see the history, and the certificate, if it was accurate initially, you can compare it to the current day. So I think that really clarified it for the audience and really clarified it for me.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, it's not just a jewelry business; it's prevalent everywhere. So being able to put things on the blockchain for physical goods, a utility token in itself, is a protection against that. But that's just the base, right? Like, what you can do on top of that, I think, is also extremely exciting, whilst just creating a safer, more transparent, and more secure market for consumers, right? Where they know what they're getting. At least that, if if you're being frauded, that person has gone really out of their way to figure out a solution, right? So making it harder for them. But it's right now, I don't think there's a better technology out there to create the kind of security that consumers deserve, because it's a bit of a free for all when you're buying stuff, especially online.
One question from Thanos that I think is interesting to think about. My wallet gets hacked and I lose ownership of the NFT. Who owns the physical item? Do I have to legally give it to the hacker? So just want to clarify what the role of the NFT is here, I guess. So does the NFT convey legal ownership, or is the NFT providing, additional, like, I suppose one way of asking this question is if someone steals a certificate for a gem, do they typically then get ownership rights for the gem, or are they sort of detached as entities?
So we have a mechanism in place. It's not, it's not the Middle Ages bearer share model in that sense. If the owner can prove that they're the actual owner and that they got hacked, but obviously we have security measures in place to make sure that doesn't happen. Then we have ways to correct for that, right, and to burn the token so that it's if it does come up in a transaction, that parties are notified that it's not valid anymore. But
and just to add a little bit onto that, the way we are approaching our solution is a way that basically democratize the solution for everyone. You don't really need to know anything about wallets. You don't really need to keep track of seed phrases or private keys at all. So the idea of like getting your wallet hacked, it's a little bit more difficult in our solution because you don't actually put your wallet into our application. You're not using your own wallet. We are generating wallets for our users, not only regular users, but commercial users too.
Yeah, and part of the philosophy behind that as well was accessibility, right? I think that's one of the strengths of Kadena. It's why we picked to build on this particular blockchain. Is that from the beginning the philosophy was for mass adoption, right? And that's why to make it accessible to users, to make it accessible to brands, what we've realized is that you always have one diehard crypto guy, but he's never kind of enough to convince the rest of the team to get behind it. So the solution had to be palatable whilst remaining secure.
Yeah, at some point, we it's not off the table. Allow users that are more savvy in the blockchain environment to add their own wallets. Is not something that we are not open to do. It's just not in the cards for the moment. It could be a future development.
Amazing. All right, we're coming up to the end of our scheduled time here, but I did see one question that could be fun to end on. Got it from Vimarika again. Any future plans or development that is not out on public? Spill the tea, please. If you have nothing, no alpha or tea to drop or spill, please also feel free to interpret this as, what are you most excited for in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, to be honest, the thing we're the most excited about right now is the auction on Saturday with Sotheby's. We hope that the fact that this is a first will drum up a lot of interest. So we're very, very focused on that this week. Overall, we're really we tend to be coy. We like to underpromise and overdeliver. So working on a few exciting projects that will come to light as we get closer to it. But as far as the development, I think what's most exciting at the moment is working on how to trace more of the supply chain so that you can get to the source. And also some cool features around ownership and direct reward for the owners through the brands, right? So we're working on all these new features. And look, if you have any suggestions, if there's things that you think would make these native assets or utility tokens more appealing, we're all ears, right? We, at the end, we're building this for the community, for consumers out there, and we don't have all the answers. So if you come up with a great idea, please send it through. We love to hear what you guys come up with.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
So Adam mentioned it. It's the supply chain issue, which is super interesting for our business, because currently, you can't really prove where stuff comes from. Neither the gold nor the gemstones nor the diamonds or colored stones in a piece. And blockchain could change that, but we're just a fringe business. I mean, jewelry is such a small application compared to other industries. So imagine you walk into the supermarket, and you grab a bar of Snickers, or I don't know, get like something else, and at the very bottom it says, the ingredients come from all sorts of places, guaranteed by blockchain. Imagine you grab a can of tuna, and it says, this is these fish in there, they're from I don't know, Southeast Asia, guaranteed by the blockchain. So I think that's a massive implication for the entire consumer business, potentially, if it works out. It might not work out, but if it does, then it can impact your everyday. It can impact your everyday life, and I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think what's interesting is, I think once people understand the possibilities, a lot of new technology will emerge. I really think we're on the cusp of a huge wave that, for me, the third kind of wave in blockchain after the cryptocurrencies and the art NFTs is the utility tokens. I think it has a massive future once people get their hands around it. And we've seen some exciting projects out there, people working on exciting things out there, which just gives us a gut feeling that we're on the cusp of something. So I totally agree with, we joke around, wouldn't it be cool if you knew exactly which sheep your wool comes from? It's like, oh, I have 2 sweaters from Nelly in New Zealand, so, but I think, eventually that's where we'll get there. That's, I think, what the consumer wants. And it's just the early stage right now. People value transparency, and they want to know provenance.
Terrific. So that's super, super cool. We got a bunch more questions in chat that unfortunately we don't have time to get to. I think just goes to show how much interest there is in this topic, and that we hopefully will be able to continue the conversation another time here and check in. By the way, for anyone that wants to follow the auction or place a bid, is there some way they can, is that being held at a particular Sotheby's auction house, or is there something online that we can point them to?
Sorry, yeah, Adam, you can simply send through the link. It's a live auction. It's an online auction. You can call in. You can simply, if you're interested, follow it and see whether people have questions about the NFT or not. As I said, it's the first piece ever. So I think people are coming to grips with, am I buying the NFT or the piece of jewelry? I don't know what's happening. So. I think people are going to be very reserved about this, but you can follow it. It's as I said, Adam's going to send through the link, and you can simply watch it online.
Awesome. So maybe Adam or Abraham, maybe on Twitter, if you guys want to tweet that out, that might be a good way for people to find it or look it up. Otherwise,
we will definitely tweet it out. Yeah, it's a traditional auction through Sotheby's. So if you want to buy just an amazing Paribas Schullin one-off piece, please bid, and you'll get a DNA token with it. So we're very, very excited. We've been very lucky with these projects that we worked with a few months ago. We worked with Steve Olson on his gallery show, and Lucas brought this amazing opportunity to us, and we're happy to make history with him.
Awesome. And where can people follow up on Twitter? What's the handle?
It's at the DNA Tech.
At the DNA Tech. Very, very cool. Well, folks, Thank you all so much for joining me. Lucas, Abraham, Adam, what a pleasure. It's been a really fun conversation.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tyler.
Tyler. And thanks, Lucas. Have a safe
Bye,
flight.
everyone.